We've received quite a bit of interest in my free to be workshop. So to that effect, beneath this video is a link that will give you a description for the workshop. And we've also included a special discount. So if that's something you would be interested in, I would invite you to click that link, and I hope that you would find the course to be quite beneficial. I can't even begin to count the number of times when individuals have described with me about life with that narcissistic person, and they'll say something to the effect of that person, that narcissistic person that they deal with on an at-home kind of level is entirely different than that person who's out there in public. In other words, these people are pretenders. Have you ever had that experience? It could be that it's someone that you're married to or someone in your extended family, and that's an individual that when they're behind the scenes with you, they can have all sorts of misery that they create, whether it's through their anger or just dismissing of you, or passive aggressiveness and stubbornness and holding on to contempt. And yet when they're out there in public, they're the nicest person you ever met, and they have all sorts of pleasant things to say, and folks will come up to you and say all sorts of positive things about them, and you're over there thinking, oh, if you only knew. One of the healthiest characteristics that you can have in your personality is the characteristic of authenticity. I have a real simple definition for authenticity. It basically means that you are internally and externally consistent. In other words, there are other kind of words that we can use, like genuineness or being real. Authentic people seek the truth about who they are, and they live into that truth. They'll say things like, I'm aware that I'm a conglomeration of pluses and minuses, and I can be honest about all of that, and I don't feel the need to hide it. I'm working on it. And they're willing to disclose their thoughts and their feelings and their experiences when it's appropriate with the appropriate kind of people. But we go back to those pretender narcissists. It's like, there is no way that I'm going to do anything like that. See, let's underscore. Narcissists are highly fear-based. And that's a major insight for you to hold on to. Behind the scenes, they may not have the energy or desire to work up all of that effort that goes into the making of that false mask, and so you get to see all the ugly stuff. But out there in public, they are indeed portraying a false self. And somewhere in their early years, and when I say early years, prior to going into adolescence, they came up to all sorts of conclusions that being real and being open and being disclosing is not going to be a positive thing at all. These individuals back in their deep history realized, well, if I'm open with the people in my life, I'm going to be shamed. Or this could set off some sort of a trauma. Many of them were exposed to anger and condescension, or it could be that they had concluded way back then that judgment is just built into my world, and I don't want to put myself out there to be judged. They know that they're going to be compared with other individuals. They may lose privileges. They may lose status. People could interpret them as weak if they reveal some of their humanity. So prior to going into adolescence, they already had a pattern established. And that is, you just simply can't afford to let folks out there know the real you. Now, just being real honest, if you look back on your personal history in your childhood, certainly I can do the same. You can say, I felt judged at times, or I felt like I had to be kind of cautious and careful. But then as you age, you go into the adolescent years and the early adult years and deeper into the adult years. You look at all of those kind of messages and you think, wait a minute. That was what I experienced back as a child, but I can go beyond that now. And I don't have to have that same fear that I might have had way back then. This is a new day, and I'm a different kind of person. I can have more of my own initiatives that I can anchor down on. And those of us who are committed to the healthy way of life, we learn. And we have insight and introspection. The problem with narcissists is they never get to that point. Freud had this term called fixation. Narcissists are fixated in that pre-adolescent way of thinking, which is a nice way of saying they're still acting like a little boy or a little girl who's not figured out how to have a sense of straight up honesty about themselves. Now, I want to see if I can kind of walk you through multiple things that are part of that narcissist pretender style of living, because it's so important for you to see what's going on inside of them, because they're going to try to make you out to be the bad guy, and you can't afford to let that happen. Narcissists, in their pretending pattern of life, have a need to appear flawless. They don't want to be like everybody else that has difficulties. Now, they can, and as a result, they absolutely will not admit their flaws. And if they do, they're going to retract it later on. Now, they're more than happy to talk to you about your flaws, because actually, the more they see your mistakes and vulnerabilities, it gives them ammunition, so to speak, so that they can have that superior kind of position. These pretender narcissists are capable of shifting their way of self-disclosure to suit whoever the person is in front of them. They may tell somebody over here, well, this is what I believe in. And then over here, it's like, well, no, actually, I'm more like this. And they can be chameleons in the way that they present themselves. These pretenders are driven by a deep need to look special. They have this hunger for significance because they never really did have the luxury of feeling significant, so they have to artificially prop that element up. In addition, their relationships tend to be very shallow. I wonder how many of you would say, yeah, the relationship that I have with my narcissistic person is really deep. No, they don't know how to go deep. It's like, no, the more you start going into that space, there's probably some landmines there that I might step on. I'm not about to go into that kind of space. Interestingly, these pretender narcissists have an element of perfectionism or idealism that's a part of their way of thinking. And by that I mean they have such an idea of how things ought to be or should be or how they're supposed to look and how they're supposed to come across. And so they're trying to live up to that high and lofty standard, which is why they try to present themselves as being more than they really are. And none of us is perfect. None of us are ideal. And yet try to say that to the narcissist is like, well, I'm different. I'm special. And that's part of their game. These pretenders can't compromise. Because you see, if you compromise, the implication is, excuse me, the implication is you're saying, my way is not the only way here. You may have some thoughts that are okay. And they don't like to do that because to them, that means they're giving up power. They're not there for you in your time of need, because if they go into your space in your time of need, the implication is, we all have struggles. You have yours and I have mine. It's like, no, I don't do that either. So they're not going to be deep friends and confidants. They can be triggered easily with anger. I wonder how many times that you've talked to that person about something that's bothering you, and instead of them saying, well, let's talk, they can't do that. Instead, they get angry that you might dare discuss something that's problematic. It's like, no, you don't do that with me. And so they can go into their rage, which is their way of trying to scare you off. They're more than willing, as part of them portraying themselves to the public in an ideal way, they're more than willing to talk in a non-ideal way about you. They'll throw you under the bus real quickly. They can try to sidle up next to people that they think are prestigious or in and popular kind of folks. So that's what goes on when you're dealing with these narcissistic people who absolutely cannot go into that space of authenticity. Now, there are actually three themes, probably more, but there are three themes that we can watch for that are a direct result of this lack of authenticity. One theme is that they tend to become very authoritarian based. Rather than looking at relationships as filled with nuance and unique elements, it's like, nope, there's right, there's wrong, there's black, there's white. get in that space and stay there. A second theme is they go into their own place of exaggerated self-importance. Because they can't be authentic and say, well, I have pluses and minuses, what they'll do is they'll say, I have pluses, that's enough, let's don't go into the minus part. And so they're so busy trying to elevate themselves that they can't have empathy for you and they can't access the personal side of life. And then the third theme, and this is interesting, because they'll never admit this one, they're highly codependent and deeply insecure. When we say codependent, they're constantly reading what everybody else is thinking and feeling and then trying to make adjustments so that they can come out on the good side of interpretations. I point all this out to let you know that part of their lack of authenticity is they're wanting to elevate themselves, but it's almost always going to be at your expense. And so you can get sucked into the game of trying to defend yourself and make them see the light and make them be honest and truthful about the way life is. But if you do, you're just simply playing their game. Now, I'm not going to say that you never should stand up for your truth, because you need to. But as you do so with the understanding that that other person may not make any adjustments whatsoever. Let's keep in mind, going back to the thought, these people are fixated in that pre-adolescent way of thinking. They haven't progressed deeply into an adult way of life. Now, they can do performances and achievements perhaps as good adults, but in terms of having that insight and awareness and that just stark honesty, it's like, nope, I don't know how to do that. I never learned how to do it. I don't want to. It scares the living daylights out of me. And that being the case, you're just going to have to recognize I'm dealing with an adult who's operating with childlike reasoning and childlike fears that they'd never have come to terms with. That being the case, that's not going to be somebody that's going to be on my inner circle. And I certainly can't take my cues about how I'm going to live life based on how I think they're going to respond. These are broken souls. They're individuals who cannot have that genuineness and realness. But I'm hoping that as you see that, you're going to just kind of pull yourself away and say, I'm going to attach to people that know how to do that much better. And in doing so also, I'm hoping that you can recognize somebody in this equation needs to be the adult. It's not going to be that person. I'm going to go ahead and be the chairman of that committee. I'm going to be an adult person that knows how to treat people right, and there's going to be a sense of honesty and reality in the way that I do life. I do hope that videos such as this can give you some stimulating insights about, how life goes. And if you have not already done so, I would encourage you to go beneath and hit this subscribe button so we can keep more videos coming your way. I consider it an honor that you would allow me to be a part of your growth pattern and your growth journey. And so thank you for allowing me to do that. If you need some counseling, I would encourage you, if you have somebody in your immediate area, that you would seek that individual out and see if you can get some counseling to help you unpack these things. If you don't have somebody in your immediate area, if you'd like, we've vetted a group that can provide online counseling. They're a sponsor of ours, and I've received good feedback, but there's a link below that you can click into so that you can get somebody that can help you unravel these kind of things. In addition, we have my free-to-be online course and workshop. It's very extensive. We've had very good feedback from that, and it's all about learning to find yourself despite the controllers in your life. Check out our websites, survivingnarcissism.tv, drlescarter.com. We have links below to our bookstore, lots of resources. I want you to be an authentic person. That means you're internally and externally consistent. And the more you're able to lean into that manner of life, I'm hoping that can cause you to become a steady person, an honest person. And in doing so, I'm hoping it can allow you to go to your place of peace.